Hello, my name is Matt and I'm one of the lead service techs here at Four Wheel Camper in Woodland, California. And today I'm going to show you the steps that you take to load a camper into a basic eyebolt installation truck. All right, we're going to start off by showing you the eyebolts in the truck and the plug, the way it gets plugged in. It's got an Atwood trolling motor plug, basically, a female on the truck, a male on the camper. The plug on the camper has about 24 inches, sometimes more, cord, and that's just so you have enough room to maneuver the plug in and out of the truck. As far as eyebolts go, a basic camper or truck installation will have 4 eyebolts, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. And then basically what happens is that the fronts pull 6 inches forward, the backs pull 6 inches back, and that basically locks the camper into place with the turnbuckles. And we'll go into more detail as far as turnbuckles go and how often to check them and stuff like that too. But again, eyebolts are there, and then the plug, Atwood trolling motor plug is there. And that's the basic installation. So measuring of the truck is important because you want to make sure when you back it in, you have enough clearance to get underneath the camper, right? So basically what you want to measure is your truck height, you know, whatever it is. This one's like 36 inches. And then you want to measure your camper and make sure it's 2 inches above that. So the camper needs to be at 38, 2 inches above the truck. That way when you back it in, it'll clear and you won't hit anything on the camper. The other thing you want to do is you want to check and make sure that the truck is lined up as straight as possible, right? So back the truck in, get it as straight as possible, and then just get to the back of the camper and look down the back of the camper and make sure it lines up with the truck. Most campers are a little bit different. This, you know, as far as space goes, this one's going to have about 1.5 inches, 2 inches of space on both sides. So you want to make sure that the space that you have on this side matches the space that you have on this side. You know, so you look down this side, make sure the spacing's good. Look down that side, make sure the spacing's good. If you have to maneuver it a little bit, if it's a little bit crooked, the truck to the camper is a little bit crooked, it's easier to move the camper than it is the truck. So if it's off a little bit and it needs to come over, you can kick the jack over a little bit. That just moves the camper back. And then you kick this side, right? So now the camper has just been moved a little bit. So it's easier to fine-tune the placement of the camper to the truck instead of trying to maneuver the truck to the camper. So once you know everything's lined up and nice and straight, you know your clearance on the truck is below the camper, you're ready to back the truck up. All right, so now before you get ready to go, you kind of want to go through a mental checklist. Make sure that you know your height is right on the camper. It's above the truck by a couple of inches. You're lined up as straight as possible. And then you're going to want to, you know, I'm going to get in the truck and back it up and make sure, I'm going to do it by myself too. So I'm going to come back as straight as possible, and I'll probably get out 2 or 3 times just to make sure that I'm lined up and coming in nice and straight. But, you know, stop and do a mental checklist and go through everything. Make sure everything's, you know, in the right place to save yourself some time at the end. Okay, so now I'm ready to back the truck into the camper. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, so like I said earlier, you're going to stop a few times just to make sure it's coming back straight, and then if you have to maneuver it, just maneuver the camper as you go. So I started to come in, and it looks pretty good. Maybe off just a little bit, so I'll just kick a jack over just to straighten it out, and then I'll come back another couple of feet and then see how it looks. So I'm definitely coming in a little bit crooked, so I got to kick the back over some more. Okay, now I'm gonna come back another couple of feet now. The other thing I like to do is I like to stop it when you start to get to the back here to this wing, because some of the other campers are a little bit wider. So just stop at the wing before the wing hits the back of the truck, and just make sure that everything's still lined up real good. And it's perfect right now. So I'm gonna come back just a little bit more, and then I'm gonna plug the camper into the truck. Okay, this is basically my last stop on what I'm doing now. Is I'm going to plug the camper into the truck. It's a 3-prong Atwood trolling motor plug, and you just want to make sure you wiggle that plug and push real hard and make sure that plug's seated properly. So wiggle the plug a little bit and make sure it's nice and tight. The other thing I like to do is on Hawks and Granbys, any camper that has running lights, is turn on the lights on the truck, and the lights on the running lights on the camper will come on. That means your plug is good. If it doesn't have running lights, you won't be able to check that, but just make sure that the plug is seated into as tight as possible, basically. I'm still about 12 inches to 18 inches from the camper bumpers to the truck. So basically now what I'm going to do is back it up nice and slow until the bumpers just touch the front or the back of the truck. So just come back nice and slow till it touches, and then stop the truck, set the emergency brake, and then we'll set the camper down on the truck. Okay, so now the truck is backed up all the way to the bumpers on the camper. I've touched the bumpers on the camper and it's pretty square. The next step is going to be to lower the camper into place, make sure it's centered as best as possible. The best thing to do is just kind of get a tape measure and measure, from one point of the camper to the side rail of the truck, and then just make sure that matches on the other side. So if this one in particular truck I have 4 inches from the edge of the camper to the bed rail, and then I'll measure that side, make sure I have 4 inches, which I've already done, and it's centered perfectly. I'll do the same thing in the back. I'll just measure just to make sure I'm in a good position. So I've got 3 inches here on this side, and I've got 3 inches here on this side, so I know I'm square and ready to go. So now, okay, I've got my cordless drill and my drill adapter to raise and lower the jacks. When you buy jacks, you also get a hand crank as well in case your battery on your drill dies. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to I usually start at the front corner and then kind of work my way around and just come down at a slow pace, a couple inches at a time. And basically what it's going to do is just going to slowly walk that camper down to the truck. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So I've made one pass, and I'm going to come back over here and do the same thing one more time. Okay, so the weight of the camper is now strictly on the truck, and my jacks are all off the ground. I'm going to double check my measurements just to make sure that the truck is centered. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you kind of want it within a quarter of an inch or so. So if you have 4 inches on this side, you want close to 4 inches on the other side. Same thing in the back, 3 inches on the side, both sides is great. If you can get it within a quarter inch, that's fine. I've already measured it, and I know it's square and straight and where it needs to be. So now I'm just going to run all the jacks all the way up to the top. Okay, so now I've brought all my jacks all the way up to the top. I've checked and made sure it's centered and the camper is where it needs to be. We highly recommend that at this point to take your jacks off and store them in the garage and not to leave them on the truck or on the camper, because they're heavy and the damage can be done to these campers by somebody sideswiping these jacks. They just don't need to be there. The best thing to do is take them off, store them in the garage until you're ready to take the camper back off the truck. So at this point, I would, if this was going someplace, I would take the jacks off. If you know you're going to take the camper off, soon, you can leave the jacks on. And just be really careful about how you're driving and where you're at. Okay, the next step is to attach your turnbuckles from the camper to the truck, and I'm ready to do that now. You want to get them at this is what the turnbuckle looks like, okay? You want to get them adjusted to the proper height to reach the eye bolts on the truck. So I've already done that. So I'll hook all 4 of them. I'm going to show you here on a porthole on the rear how I'm going to do that, but I've already hooked the fronts. I like to hook them all up and get them snug, and then tighten the front ones first and then tighten my rears, right? So I'm going to go ahead and show you real quickly on how to, basically what you're going to do is make sure it's as tight as you can get it by hand. So you get them all hooked and in place, and then tighten your front ones and twisting this as tight as you can get it by hand. Once it's as tight as you can get it by hand, you want to use a tool like a screwdriver or a wrench or some type of tool and to make it more secure, and get it wrench tightened another half a turn, maybe a full turn, to make sure that that is plenty tight. You don't have to over tighten it, but you want it as tight, hand tight, and then another half turn to a full turn with a wrench or a screwdriver. So this is the tool that we use, and that's the turnbuckle. I'm going to go ahead and reach in and hook this rear. I'm going to hook it to the eye bolt on the truck first, and then I'm going to hook this side up to the camper, and then I'm going to turn this hand tight. All right, one hand. So hand tight as I can get it by hand. Once I've got it hand tight, I'll take my tool, put it in the turnbuckle, and then it's just going to be a matter of like a half a turn or so, just till it's nice and snug and tight. And then make sure you periodically check those turnbuckles. Put them on, get them all nice and tight, and then check them 50 to 100 miles. Stop what you're doing, get off the side of the road, or do it at a gas station, but reach in and check all 4 turnbuckles and make sure they stayed tight. It's really important that you check them 50 to 100 miles after you first put the camper on the truck. And then after that, just periodically check it. If you hit a bumpy road, 4-wheel drive, washboard roads have a tendency to loosen these turnbuckles. So if you have any kind of bumpy roads or like that, pull off the side of the road, check your turnbuckles, make sure they all stayed tight. It's real important to maintain turnbuckle tightness on these campers.